an exuberant amount of money from each community to get a service that's being provided for each veteran. Now, he works 35 hours per week for 5 towns. My proposal was potentially pay John, potentially $20,000 a year to work 19.5 hours per week. Because right now what you're doing is you're paying upwards of over that for potentially 5 hours per week. So you're looking at an increase of almost 400% of productivity and outreach for our veterans within our community with assistance with obviously Council of Aging. I mean, Bethany's been a great assistance, and meeting her has been great, and her outreach coordinator has been fantastic. The other great thing, which I had a great meeting on Saturday with the Secretary of Veteran Services, Coleman Nee, the Deputy Secretary, Ms. Poppy, who I've worked with for many years. I explained the circumstances of Templeton, and they supported the endeavor that I was going forward with, because again, it's not about the dollars that individuals make, it's all about what's you're giving back to the community, what are you giving back to the veterans of that said community. And either with outreach or with Chapter 115, veterans benefits, education benefits, fuel assistance, if it's, whatever benefits that the individual can receive or she can receive, then there should be somebody there to assist that individual, and that's not happening. I don't think, I've been here 8 years, lived in this town 8 years, and I don't think it's happening. Being a combat guy myself, and I mean, I need as much help as I can get, and I can tell you, I've reached out and I didn't get much assistance. And I know there's been a few other individuals that also, but again, I'm not complaining about the service that's not being provided, but there's definitely there could be a better service that's being provided to our veterans. One of the other questions that was brought up was talking about funding. If you do select, or you do decide to vote on to bring in your own Director of Veteran Services within the town, and say it is John Kappas, there is a tax break benefit of $9,200 per year for the first 3 years of my hire, which means, say you pay John Kappas $20,000 a year. Well, you're really not. You're only paying me, $11,000 a year because you're getting that tax break for the first 3 years of my hire. So it's actually a benefit to another benefit to the town by the federal government. So, and that's also, it's not in what you have in your hand, but it's online. I can send it to you via email. The other thing we talked about is the hiring process. Well, how do you hire a veteran? Well, you have to advertise it, and then you have to wait the 2 days, and we get applications in, and there's a hiring process just like every town or city has, and you go through this interview and all this stuff. Well, it's not like that. It's an appointed position within a town or city, which means the town of selectmen vote to appoint the individual, which means you today, stood there today, can say, John, we're going to select to appoint you the veteran director of this community. It's an appointed position, not a type of an application, job description type of a position. So, and that's per Mass General Law of Chapter 115, Section 3, which I did bring a copy, if you'd like to see it, where it does say that it is an appointed position by the Board of Selectmen. Okay. What I do have, I gave you copies of the proposal, and then behind a couple of those pages, those were some good information. But what I'm going to give you, Mr. Chair, is the actual copies, not so much of the proposal because you already have that, but it's the actual documents that, if you do decide, that's the actual document that would need to be signed by all of you, as well as this document. If you so desire to vote on such a, and the reason why the big push is not so much John Kappas needs a job, because quite frankly I really don't, but I believe in the town, I believe in the service, and I think we can pay our service members back by giving something back to them with having a strong member that has a little bit of education and knows what's out there as far as benefits. But come 1 April, as you all know, the fiscal year starts, and you would have to wait till come next by April 2015 to look at this avenue again of approach.
And we have to give notice if we choose to pull from the district. We have to give them notice by April 30th, or?
Hopefully before then. Like I said in the memo, that memo that's there, that is the memo that will actually go by certified mail to all the surrounding communities, Royalston, Phillipston, Athol. Once it's signed by the members of the board, that will be certified mail to all the towns. Once I get the green slips back, that with the green slips along with the second memo that's there, along with my memo, will then be sent to Secretary Comani's office, where they should be expecting it by now, after what they told me on Saturday. And then they will send me another certified letter back, identifying me as your Department of Veterans Service rep for this community, with the assistance of your treasurer, because obviously that treasurer will be assisting me with my Chapter 115 benefits payouts with the check to the 8 veterans of the community that's getting Chapter 115 assistance. Because right now there's only 8, which is not a big number. The other thought process out there, just so you before you make your decision, is there's a whole bunch of talk that there's other veterans from the other communities that if you break up the district, those veterans are going to get hurt, and all the checks are going to stop, and you're going to hurt all these veterans. Well, I'm standing here before you and telling you, coming from the Secretary's office himself, that's not going to happen. That individual that has a district can redistrict. He can redistrict the area himself, or those towns will have to, figure it out. But it's really not Templeton's problem at that point. Templeton has its own concern, its own, constituents to worry about, its own people to have concern about, its own veterans. We have the most amount of veterans out of all the other towns, so out of the, out of the other towns, so 504 are ours. In fact, it's actually grown because at least 7 other veterans just moved into the community within the last year. So and that's only the 2013 census. So we're growing in veterans as well. So and then also just working with Council for Aging, just so you know, working with Bethany, I think we're not going to. I wouldn't want to start like another whole department. I think working under Council for Aging, that way there's no department overhead type of budgetary stuff or budgetary restraints, where there's really no monetary requirements, other than obviously, potentially me, which is my, inconsiderable, inconsistent, what we're already paying, the district, which is a lot less, for more hours and better service. So, to you, Chair, I mean, obviously, if you want to table this again for another meeting, that's fine, but I would like to at least maybe get some documents signed and maybe get some votes on this.
No, I appreciate the time that you've put into it. It's a very good proposal, in my opinion, and I do think that our veterans would be much better served by having a local representative in town versus a district representative in another town. So I do appreciate the time that you put into it. We do have a couple of questions.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I love them.
Pete?
Years back when the war stopped, we had our own Harold Hayes. He was up on the south road. He did a hell of a job.
Yeah.
And what thing we're getting now, the veterans, we get beans from the guy we got in Athol. He should be putting a goddamn boat throwing down orange.
I like this
Tip it
guy.
over.
Yeah.
I like this guy.
Yeah.
I like this guy.
Pete knows.
The truth.
No, I like it, Pete. Keep it up.
Joanne?
Also, dealing with the assessor's office, I can vouch the services we get from Mr. McWork out in Athol, Orange area. We're pretty much told you can give them the flyers, but don't give out the phone numbers. I mean, if my veterans want to call, I think they should be able to pick up a phone.
Sign the thing tonight.
That's pretty much criminal. That's criminal.
Sign it.
Dave?
I'm with Pete. We need John working for us. Our veterans need him even more than we need him working for us. We owe it to our veterans to have John doing this for them.
Sign it.
You?
Another year.
You're not gonna be like that other guy out in Athol or Orange.
I know your phone number.
No.
All right.
I live in Templeton. I live in East Templeton, right by that road that was up there.
What do you think of that road?
I think that road was terrible, but
See? Right there, you heard it from the horse's mouth.
Doug, I know it was mentioned in one of the other meetings. What do we pay the district?
It's somewhere in the neighborhood of 35,000?
Oh my gosh,
If-
nothing.
If we're gonna get a 19 dedicated hours for less money than spending 35 to split
It speaks for itself.
between 5 towns for a guy that's working for 35 hours,
It's from town.
I don't
Do
see
you
the
still have to
discussion
pay
to
the
this.
35,000 to the other person?
No.
What?
Not now, not if I get
Oh,
that.
yeah, that's what I.
Right, so, yeah, and so John's
I get the
proposal
math.
is for 20,000. So, I mean, it'd be a savings to the town. Our veterans will get.
And the taxes.
Right, and the taxpayers,
And you're
and,
just gonna work 20
you know, the
hours.
veterans will get better
19.5.
service.
You're just gonna work that, that's all.
Doesn't it?
I also proposed, in the proposal, which you guys did here, there's also a, part of my outreach program is an emergency outreach system where if a veteran has issues, that I'll have an emergency cell phone where they'll be able to reach me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Nice.
I just wanted to confirm that from the Council on Aging point of view, we do have an office in the new building that a veteran service officer would be able to utilize for the 19.5 hours a week. We did actually establish that office expecting that the veteran service officer would have office hours, but in dealing with the current situation, I don't think that that office would be utilized for that if we didn't go our own way. I also wanted to mention, we do have a workspace available until we move into the new building. We did the math on what 5 hours a week of veteran service officer time gets us at the current rate. He's $88 an hour. That's what he's charging the town. My former social service coordinator used to tell me how she would constantly be doing his job for him, and I have had veterans who have needed my help in order to reach him. And we also run a veterans, a once-a-month veterans group. I've been here, I think, 7 months now and have not even met Neil.
Thank you. Diana?
I was just gonna, my time at the senior center, you know, he was never there for the once-a-month veterans group. They constantly tried to get him to, you know, we tried to get him to come to reach out to the veterans. No go.
Have you guys reported them?
Will?
Just to clarify, the advisory board, from budgetary standpoint, I didn't want to take it, end up clarifying the number. It's roughly $22,000 that we pay just the agent.
Yes.
In addition to that, we, the why you got mixed up, Doug, and I understand that why you said 35, because we ended up having to take a vote from free cash this year here, an additional $35,000 that they could end up supplementing what they had originally asked for.
Yes.
And we took that out of free cash. So the actual total is somewhere in the vicinity of 65 to 70,000 that the veterans get, but the veterans agent gets 22. From the perspective of the advisory board, we have looked at that, and we have looked at other communities. Other communities have an agent, probably less hours than what you're talking about. I don't know how many people that they serve. We haven't got to that particular point. But they're having to end up doing that in the vicinity of 25 to 30% of what we pay into the present agent. So that you're talking about somewhere between $5,000 and $6,000 a lot of communities. And that's just taken end up, from my understanding, we're only serving right now 8 individuals. So that's 8, 9, it's less than 10, it's less than 10 veterans. So I want to take and at least let you know that there is a potential to save money here. I'm not sure what the correct hours are, but it's definitely less than the 22 from what we've seen in other communities.
Well, based on the numbers, you're right, Will. There's 8 veterans right now currently getting Chapter 115 benefits from the Commonwealth, or from us, that we get paid back to 75%. Right now, there's 504 veterans right now in the town of Templeton and Baldwinville. 504 by the 2013 census, which I got from the town clerk's office. That's not including the veterans that just moved into the town, which I know of personally.
Yep.
Based on the numbers that I got from the secretary's office, as far as the demand to the need, like the 1 to 10,000, like part-time versus full-time veteran service officer, et cetera. You know, I'm right in the ballpark between a full-time and a part-time veteran service officer based on just the 504 number itself. Just on that. So that's why I said the part-time, and again, I don't want to work full-time. I'm retired, I don't want to have to work full-time. I think part-time based on the number of 8, but I also think that there's no outreach, and that's like the biggest thing. If there's zero outreach in the community, there's zero information being put out there as far as, excise tax abatement issues, or issues on, the state law as far as, money off your real estate, depending on, your veteran status and disability ratings. Education, traumatic service group life insurance issues. There's a whole slew of veterans benefits out there, assistance for oil, free oil for veterans.
Pension also.
Yeah, pension, yeah, exactly, yeah, there's a whole, depending on statute and what status you're in, which I can assist the veterans with, but there's a whole, I got books and books of veteran stuff, that again, I don't think that the veterans have the information that they need. I think working with Bethany, having a spot to not just to work, but to set up classes, once a month, have, informative classes where veterans can come in and we can educate them on the information that's being, and put it out in the newsletter, or, mail-outs, or emails, or, there's a whole, smorgasbord of things that we can do in today's, technology, and there's a whole bunch of things that we can do. But it's just getting to that point, getting John to that point, getting this town to that point, where we can save money, get a better quality service. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Yes, Julie?
I'd like to make a motion, I support your proposal 100%, and I would like to make a motion to enact what we need to enact to support this proposal.
I second that motion.
Very good.
Can I just ask a couple of questions?
Sure.
I've just been waiting for everybody else to speak. It's the perfect pairing. I spoke to you about this before. I more than 100% support this. I just have a couple of questions, like the laptop computer and the smartphone, like how would we take care of that for you right away? And then as you reach more veterans, which is really the absolute goal of that, do you see that like changing for you hours-wise, supplies that you need, or a different kind of budget? I'm sure it wouldn't be much, but I'm just kind of asking. If there's 504 veterans and we're only servicing how many right now? How much can one person, yourself handle?
I gotta get my hands on how many, where 2 vets are still left, Vietnam vets are still left with us. Then we have a lot of OIF, OEF veterans that are still, that are just coming in, the younger veterans that are still in the town. Once I get those numbers, and I can get a better handle on, where that's gonna play out, I don't think it's gonna be more time.
Like you want to do mailers and that kind of stuff, and Bethany's very good about passing out supplies.
She is, I'm hoping to get a nice...
At department head meetings, her oversupply.
I'm hoping to get some good space on her mail, or her nice little...
That'll be great.
Flyer is nice. But as far as the phone and laptop, again, that's going to be, that's something that we can potentially work out. I can work with, potentially Bethany on that. It doesn't have to happen right away.
Okay.
But again,
I think you should be fully set up, is really kind of what I'm saying. Like, how would we make that happen, I think was really the question how do we make that happen for you? Not to say that I don't support that, because I do, absolutely. But it's just how do we make sure that happens and that you can, start doing that job right away?
I don't know who I would, do you guys have like a technological?
I don't know, so.
Would that be you, Holly?
Holly gets to do everything.
Okay, there you go.
I'll work with Holly on that.
Okay.
All right.
You might want to work with communications
Yes.
to get the phone.
Okay.
See us, we
I'll
have
see you,
a
Chief.
government account, we'll get your phone, I don't know who's gonna pay for it, but we should.
Oh, you get it, Chief.
We won't pay for it.
They said you...
Somebody will.
All right, Bethany's got something real quick, or?
There is a desktop computer that is available for John's use immediately. We can work with communications to get the cell phone like we did for the van phones. The COA is prepared to sort of encompass his needs with regards to doing his payroll along with our payroll, We can certainly do all of his accounts payable, accounts receivable type stuff, but our budget would need to, because our expense budget is $4,000, 90% of that is the copier. So just to get us through the rest of the year, we might need a little bit of stuff just to get him off the ground. And as long as the override passes and budgets aren't, you know, mutilated, which is what I foresee happening if the override doesn't pass, then I just expected a natural sort of integration so that there is no additional overhead. It's just part of the COA, and we're doing what we're doing anyway. We're just doing it for just one more.
Okay, Dave?
I was just gonna say the communications account may have
Yeah.
that, but Julie brought it up already. I don't know if the cable commission would have money in their account for a laptop down the road, but I would say communicating to the veterans would be part of their deal too.
Yeah.
I don't know if that would work or not. Yeah, Paul?
I don't want to rain on your parade.
None. Go.
All right, veteran, tail end of the Cuban crisis, Vietnam era vet.
Mhm.
I've been to Bedford, I have an ID, I have a doctor in, I had a doctor in Fitchburg.
Right.
I filled out all my paperwork. I got it back. They said in 2009, 2010, I made more than $29,000. So I was entitled, I wasn't entitled to anything. I had a hearing problem, I was in the engine room. You know, I spent 4 years
I'll
on the
get your name
white
before I
one.
leave.
Yeah, I think that's a
Thank
kind of an
you.
I'll
offline
get your name
discussion
before we
you
leave.
guys should have.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Will?
I hate to put this on you guys, but on April 2nd, the selectmen, as part of their overall budget, veteran service is on our agenda as far as budget reviews, and that's the responsibility coming out of the administrator and for the selectmen, that we actually need a number that they can start putting in the budget. As you know, we have budgetary issues already.
Yeah, I saw that.
That needs to be addressed, but that's something that really, we are going to need a number for that overall budget to be put in, for not only for the agent, but how much we're going to put into veteran services. As we all know, we do get some of that money back on the cherry sheet.
Right.
All right, well,
So
we have a
that's
motion. Yeah.
down the road.
I saw that on the February 2nd, which I was already working at home this past weekend, and, you know, obviously, I couldn't get names, obviously, because I wasn't appointed or anything, so I can't get names, or couldn't get names. But I do know the number of people, and based on the amount of money that the potential veteran could receive, maxing at about $2,500 per month, I was able to ballpark some of the figures. So I was able to work some of the numbers. But again, I was highballing it, because I don't know, you know, what some of these 8 are getting. Some could be getting $1,000 a month, some could be getting $2,000, you know, one could be getting, you know what I mean? So I don't know.
Okay. All right, well, we have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? All right, seeing none. Julie?
Yes.
Yes.
Diane? Yes. I will vote yes, and thank you for your service and your efforts, and I know we'll have a good relationship going forward.
All right, thanks.
Welcome aboard.
We need to appoint him, don't we?
Okay.
You can't leave yet, John.
Sorry.
That was to do the memorandum
Yeah.
to, like, okay, so we need another motion,
Right.
right, to appoint.
John
I
Cash.
forgot that one.
Is there some specific wording that's needed?
No, I don't think anything's...
I make a motion to appoint John Kaplis, VSO officer. Does there need to be time frame or till like a certain, from
I'm
now?
not sure because
Do we have to
their year is
end it, like,
different.
right,
Right, it's not gonna end June 30th.
right.
It would be
So how do,
At least till April.
until April of next year? Until April of next, 2015?
Yeah.
No, because it's like the animal inspector. The April ones are different.
Right, from April
So until when?
till
Yes,
till
you can
March
maybe-
31st. It would actually be March 31st because we would have to just wait, so,
I didn't say you were the
sorry, I'm
animals.
just trying to word that correctly.
All right, so we have a motion to appoint John Kaplis as BSO to March 31st, 2015.
Mr. Chairman,
I'll
as
second
part of that, I
that.
think you should end up saying that you need to end up putting a letter to the district informing them that you have your own agent here, and
It's
not
here.
just...
Here, we've already got that.
It's already
Okay.
here.
I'm sorry.
All right, so did you second it,
I
Julie?
second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Julie?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes.
So we just need to sign that
Okay, so we
John
need to
has,
sign.
well, is it just the chair? It's just the
No, it's all of
Nope,
this.
it's all of us.
Okay, so is there a letter appointing John, or is
Yep.
there?
No, I'll have
Is it
to,
both?
she'll have to do the
Both.
card after
You-
that.
Okay, fine, all right, that's what I
But I
thought I
can
saw.
get them from Holly later.
Just want to make sure you have all the right stuff.
When's that thing coming?
Tomorrow.
I can pick up from Holly this week. I just want to get them out to the mail as quickly as possible.
I think all four of us have to sign?
Yep.
That's what I was told.
All right. We are going to move on now to snow and ice deficit.
All right. I'm gonna go, because I don't care. Thank you, everybody. I'm gonna say, this is really great.
Come back.
I will. But I appreciate it. I gotta say,
You care about snow and ice more than I
And your question is, Mr. Chair, do you have a question about it?
You're not spinning anymore, are you?
I won't if it don't stop.
Where are we at?
We're about 55,000, 53,000 in the red. I brought it with me. Just shuffle through here. We're a little over 50,000, 53,000 in the red. She's got circled here, I'm sorry, $51,516.55.
Okay. So
Out
then,
of the 70 that was voted.
right,
75, I'm sorry, 75.
all right. So we're probably in good shape then for the rest of the year.
I hope so. It sounds like this storm is gonna miss us. We might have 1 to 3 inches. I'll call you Thursday and tell you what we officially got, but I think, I'm hoping that they're absolutely correct on this and it's gonna stay all southeast, so. We might have a sanding operation, perhaps maybe a plowing operation if it turns into a 3-inch storm, you know. That's where we sit. We've been, dwindling now, salt supply down to barely nothing, and only ordering by trailer dump as we need it. I don't wanna spend any more out of snow and ice than absolutely has to, so, we're doing our cutbacks, shaving it as much as we can. We're getting these, daytime thaw, nighttime freezes. Over the weekend, police needed to call us out on some spot sanding where it ran across the road. One of the particular areas that's been really hampering the town is the New Ballinville Road on the Templeton side, just before you turn to go to the stop sign. It's ponding out on the lawn out there between Boynton Street and the new sidewalk, and it's ponding out there. The drainage was eliminated in that area on the back side of the sidewalk, so it's running across one of the handicap entrances, and it's coming right across the road, and it's just sheeting right down to 2A. I'll address that with the engineer when they're back on board, and they've still got more work to do on Ballinville Road, but I'll see what can be modified in that area, because it won't go away, it's just gonna continue to get worse, so. But that's where we sit.
All right, very good, thank you. You guys have any questions on snow and ice for Bud? All right, so discussion on hiring freeze and a need for additional help in town offices.
Okay, well, that was Diane that brought that forward. In my overzealousness to want to help the departments that are severely short-handed or only have, the town clerk only has one person, so when she leaves, the doors have to be closed. I still am very unclear as to why we only have one assessor, and I'd also spoken to the chief and to Mr. Mayo. But after the town hall meeting, and I still believe firmly that we should not have one person, and every department head has spoken to me and said that Mr. Mayo definitely needs help, but I think we're gonna have to wait until after Saturday and really to see what happens at the special town meeting, and then, you know, kind of go from there. It makes me sad, but, you know, again, I didn't get to speak to you today, Luann, but to really just know that I know that you need help, and like I said, it was just, I know that there's a need for it, so I was just gonna really, you know, kind of table that for now and not talk about it until later. I know you're definitely gonna need somebody. I don't know how we're gonna do a reval with one person. I don't see how that can happen. You have one person out shoveling at night alone. It just bothers me, that's all. So that was really all I was gonna say about that tonight, but it's in my exuberance to want to help. So I really do appreciate you all.
Could we go back to highway rules and regs? It was on next to snow and ice.
Oh, I see, yep. Okay, sorry about that.
It's okay. Some of the issues that I alluded to regarding Orchard Lane impacts a number of other roads in town. The highway rules and regs were put in place, I'm not sure how long ago. Do you remember?
Approximately 7-8 years ago.
Okay, 7 or 8 years ago for a specific reason, and that was to protect, when we do fix a road, to protect that road so that it's not dug up without proper procedures in place. And I think we're getting more and more instances of, you know, we had a water main break on Ballinville Road, we had a water main break on Sawyer Street, and the water main breaks are impacting our ability to try to maintain our roads. So I think we really need to look at these rules and regs and make sure that they're enforced, okay, and that we follow through. Because it's a significant investment when we finally do get a road done. God only knows when we'll be able to do something like Ballinville Road again. It takes about 5 to 7 years to get on the tip list, and that's how we got that road done. In addition to the Chapter 90 money that was put up for the engineering by the town. All right? Once you fix Orchard Lane, you're probably not going to get back there to do Orchard Lane for at least 30 years. So these types of rules and regs are put in place to protect the investment that the town makes in these roads. And I think it's important that we follow through. So I would like the board to look at the rules and regs. They probably need review if they're 7 years old. And we should enforce the rules and make sure that all departments in town are on the same page.
So what's our other departments that we feel aren't following the rules? Yes, Bud?
The rules actually, I'm pretty satisfied with the way the rules stand right now as far as how they're written, and sometimes the enforcing part is a little difficult because we really don't have an enforcing officer. I did take the liberty about 2 weeks ago to speak to the water superintendent and asked him, since nearly its start, these road cut permits, think very few times the water department came in and gave me a work permit. If it was a water break, we allow them to come in after the fact, because you can't, we're not open at night. And that just kind of just fell right off. So I don't even get a permit that they opened the road. Now, I just learned over the weekend, or the end of last week rather, that there was another road opening on Otter River Road on the lower side of Four Corners. And I understand, I was told, I want to follow up with the water superintendent to make sure this is true, but I was told that a contractor was hired to come in and fix their water break. Now, it's absolutely spelled out in there, and the water department has a copy of these rules, that any contractor that comes into town must first obtain a road opening permit, because there's different rules for contractors versus town departments. A contractor comes into town, they need to put up a $1,500 escrow. The treasurer holds that $1,500 for up to 1 year until I'm satisfied that the road's not going to settle out, their repair was good, and we return their escrow back. There's also an application fee for cutting into our roads. Now, when this road permit was first instituted, the water department did receive a waiver that they don't have to pay for a permit, that they're waived, that the board at the time waived it. And they don't have to put up an escrow. So the problem that I've been faced with in a few years, I'm glad one of the selectmen brought it up, is that it's true that some of these repairs haven't been put back to my liking, to the standard. And I should say the standard, not my liking, but some recent repairs haven't even been, it states right in there that if you dig it up, you can't hot top it right off the bat because of certain conditions, and this being winter conditions, is that you cold patch the ditch. Well, they've got a couple of openings right now that they put millings in them. One is on a major road, South Main Street, East Templeton. They just dumped millings in them and they rolled them out. And I went to see him on that right away, and he says, well, it's cheaper than, we're gonna dig it up come spring anyways and lower the main. I says, yeah, but that's, spring, summer, whenever you decide to do that, we have to still plow the road, and I'm concerned about the plow hitting that one particular area. Not only that, it's a higher speed road through that one particular area. I mean, they get the scoot pretty good, 35, 40 miles an hour. So I told him I'd rather see, coal patch be put in that as to millings. And then a week later, I find Otter River Road dug up and millings put in it. So it seems like no matter what I say, it doesn't matter. So that letter that you're stating right there, that I'm asking you took action on earlier, it did make a notion in there about work permits and whatnot. Kind of hoping that'll ring a bell over there and they'll start following procedures. My conversation to him, and I'll put it right out there, I told him, I said, you don't let people connect anything that you don't want on your water mains, and I'm in charge of roads, so, if you had to put the millings in there overnight because you couldn't get any coal patch, but the following day, dig it out. He asked me, he said, well, my machine's broke down, can you help me with the machine? I said, well, if you need help, give me a call, we can dig it out if you get some coal patch and, put it back in there, try to make more of a repair. Plus, there are companies that will do hot top in winter times. It's very expensive, but they can get the hot top down near Boston area. Now, a state road, you have to do something right away. I mean, Route 2A, if they have a water break, they can't put millings in it, and they gotta do what the state wants under their permit. So that's my.
And they have to get a permit from the state?
They have to apply annually for an overall permit from the state every year. Everybody does, whoever does, and unfortunately, the highway department doesn't have to apply. We have nothing to do with state roads, but water and sewer do.
Now, this contractor that was in over the weekend, was that an emergency kind of situation to fix?
I don't know. I don't know if it was something scheduled or if they had a break and they couldn't get anybody. I don't know. Other than I drove upon, I was checking some roads out and I found it. And I stopped, I backed up, I looked, and I didn't even know this happened, so the other thing is they're just not communicating, that they had a problem and they had to open it up. But again, I've asked anybody that digs in our roads, they have to fill out a permit.
Yeah, even if they don't pay the fee, they should fill out the permit, just so that we
Well, the
have
fee,
record of it.
the fee
being
should
done.
be, perhaps, that was discussed, 8 years ago. I'm saying it's 8 years ago, maybe it might be longer, I don't think it's less. But, perhaps fees ought to be looked at differently now that the water department is established. I'm not one to make that call, but we all have to pay permits, water fees.
Do you pay less in water and light bills?
I wish.
Well,
I don't.
perhaps then that we're waiving fees, perhaps there could be some other way to go about that.
Absolutely.
And they're town buildings. So if you're trying to, I'm sure that might have been done to help. I mean, it's a part of our town, so maybe that's something that needs to also be addressed as for town buildings. Perhaps the rate should be a little bit less. We're all part of the same town.
I agree.
And could somebody tell me where to find these rules and regs? I'm sorry.
They were in the packet that we got online.
Oh, really?
From Holly,
Did I?
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, the email.
I thought I
from
read through everything.
March 20th.
Okay, maybe I didn't download them all to my drive.
If not, I have lots of them at the highway department. We could scan one and email it to you.
All right.
If that's what you
I can let Jean know.
would. Okay.
But, all right, I'll just look through.
I think I have it separately too.
I swear I read everything.
There is a copy of it somewhere in the
Okay,
But you scanned it.
administrator's office.
thank you.
Okay. I know I
Any
did.
other discussion on
I
the
think I did.
highway rules?
Okay, we're done.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, capital planning. I left a copy of the capital plan for everyone. I just thought it might be easier to have it to look at. And I do have the other capital planning members here, Lori from the school committee and Will from the advisory board, and I appreciate you guys coming. The capital planning committee, we've kind of taken a little bit of a different direction this year. In late December or so, which was a little bit late in the budgetary process, we sent out to all the departments a request asking them to provide for us a capital asset inventory, which defined a capital asset as an item used in town operations that have a useful life in excess of 2 years and a current acquisition cost in excess of $5,000. This includes items such as, but not limited to, land, buildings, building improvement, infrastructure, vehicles, machinery, equipment, software, etc. So it was a pretty wide scope, and we got back a lot of information from the departments. It also asked for kind of a replacement schedule of your capital assets. When do they need to be replaced, and what would be an estimated replacement cost? So the committee, we took all of that information that we got then from the departments and developed what we're calling a master capital plan. And the advantage to having this master capital plan, as we saw it, is it allowed us to, project out what our costs are going to be, over the course of time. And it gave us a good picture of what our real capital needs are. Unfortunately, everybody doesn't have the charts, but if you look at chart 2, what we did is after we laid out the full plan, and the full plan goes out 20-some years, even a little more. I think 2045 was the furthest thing out that we had. So, I mean, the departments did a good job of giving us, their expectations of when things are going to be replaced. But nonetheless, as we projected the plan out, and you start boiling down the averages, in average, it looks like we need to be investing about $400,000 a year in capital in order to sustain the capital requirements of the town, as far as equipment, machinery, those kinds of things. And in years past, the departments have been asked to fill out forms every year. Some forms were easy, some forms are complicated, for every capital project or capital item that they wanted to acquire. And they did this year after year after year because, again, because of our budget reasons, we didn't do it. So the next year, they had to do the same things over and over. And we heard that from every department, is waste time every year filling out this form, submitting it, and nothing gets done. The next year, I fill it out again and submit it again. So the committee, we kind of discussed this, and by using this master plan, what we can do in the next year is, rather than having the departments come back and resubmit forms over and over and over again, we'll sit down with the departments, look at the plan for that department, and just kind of have a discussion and a conversation. Is this still the priority? Is any of this equipment that you said needed to be replaced this year, is it still in good condition? Can we push it out another year? And kind of, work through the plan that way. So once an item is on the plan, it's there until it gets, replaced, even if that's, 10 years from now. So the departments don't have to come back and tell us year after year after year that they need this. It's already in the plan, and once it's in the plan, it's in the plan. Now, the other advantage is, as we go to town meeting and start talking about capital, because the plan has been able to project our future requirements, we can discuss with town meeting that, okay, this year we have, this $300,000 worth of capital expense that we need to do. But if you look out, next year we've really got 5. So we should go ahead and appropriate put 100 into capital stabilization, so that next year it will be there. And you don't have to do 5, you still only got to do 4. So it gives us the opportunity to plan, our capital purchases in advance. Just because we put money in capital stabilization doesn't mean we have to spend it that year, which has been something that's been a difficult thing here. It seems like we get a few dollars and it's boom, let's spend it right now, If we'd have saved those few dollars and added it with a few dollars the next year, maybe we would have been able to do something better. So those are the kinds of things that the committee is hoping to achieve by using this master capital plan. One of the other things the committee discussed as we've been meeting is that we really see some opportunities that if the town would start doing some consolidated acquisitions, such as copiers, rather than the Council on Aging buying a copier, the selectmen buying a copier, the planning board buying a copier. If the town or the police or whomever, if the town went together and did a consolidated lease of copiers, now everybody gets a machine at the same time, everybody's got more current technology, you're not having all of the maintenance expense of these old machines that you purchased 5 years ago and you're trying to nurse along. So there's some opportunity there. Yes, you're going to have a bigger capital outlay at one time, but you're going to have lower cost in the remaining years, and you're going to be able to take advantage of newer technologies. Same with personal computers. I mean, every department has computers these days, and if you walk into any department, I'll bet no 2 computers are the same. You're going to have some that are just a couple years old, you're going to have some that are probably 7 years old, you're going to have some that have, different kinds of software. There's no consistency across the town. And if, we had a technology person or going out to use these technology services to maintain our personal equipment, when you've got this big hodgepodge of equipment, everything is different, it just costs more, it's more difficult to manage, files aren't compatible between departments. So that would be another advantage of if we did personal computers on a consolidated basis. Again, they're going to be, newer, they're going to be the same, it's going to be easier to maintain across all of the departments. So that was just a couple of opportunities that we saw. Then the other thing is we see some opportunity to use good used equipment versus having to go out and buy new equipment for everything. Now, in the memo here, we underlined some and underlined good. That's not a good solution for every piece of equipment. We don't want to buy everything we need as used. But there are some pieces that we could get some good used equipment. And we hear, or I've heard at least from time to time that, oh, we can't buy used because, we don't know what it's going to cost and we don't have money and, da-da-da-da-da. Well, you go to a town meeting and you explain to the people that we're going to buy this used thing. Yeah, I don't know exactly how much it's going to cost today, and I don't know exactly what date it's going to be available to us, but we're going to look for this used piece of equipment. So we appropriate some funds, so they're appropriated at town meeting, and now when we find that piece of equipment and we can get the price that we want to pay for it, you've already got the money appropriated. Again, just because you're appropriated doesn't mean you have to spend it, right then and there. So I think there is some opportunity, and, we as a town need to look at those opportunities. What could we buy used, and how do we find it good? I mean, you don't want to buy a used piece of equipment that's only 2 years old, but it's been, beat, 26 hours a day. That's not a good investment either. So, but again, I think there are some opportunities there. All right, let's talk about 2015 now. And I'm sorry I'm going to take so long here. In 2015, based on this master plan that we built, based on the information that we pulled from the departments, there are 18 capital items that needed to be filled for 2015. So the committee met with every department. And 6 of those items we felt should be deferred. So we pushed 6 of those 18 items out to future years. Then the other items, we went ahead and ranked them based on what we think the most critical need for the town is. So the first item on our list is an ambulance that the fire department has requested, an ALS-equipped ambulance. They're looking to do a 5-year lease, or they're asking to do a 5-year lease, and they're wanting to pay for it out of the ambulance receipts. So this would have no tax impact, on the taxpayers, because they're going to pay for it with the receipts. It's pretty much a wash. The ambulance that they have now, I believe, is something like 13 years old. 14? Yep, so it's 14 years old. And the expected life expectancy or useful life expectancy of an ambulance is like 5 years, right? 7. Okay. So, our ambulance is more than twice the age that it should be. So the fact that we can get it at no cost to the taxpayers, move that up to our number 1. Our number 2 is the cemetery. We're already in a lease commitment for a 2011 dump truck. This is the final payment on that dump truck. Now, we need to make the payment. I mean, it would be silly for us to not figure out how to make this payment. I mean, we've already paid 4 years on the lease. We've got 1 more payment to make. Then the truck is ours. It's still got some good, useful life. We, at the time that we made our recommendation, thought that there was enough money in the capital stabilization fund to cover this $11,000 payment. However, we found out just yesterday that that number that we had, the $13,000, is not a good number. So we're going to have to find some other funding source for the lease payment. There is some money in the general stabilization fund that could be used for this. So I don't know how we're going to, it'll be up to the selectmen really to decide how we're going to fund this, but we really do need to fund it. It's silly for us to not make this final payment and have to give the truck back after paying on it for 4 years.
And these, what you're talking about now would be for the annual town meeting?
That is correct, yes. Okay. Yes, these are our annual town meeting recommendations.
Doug, can I ask what happened then? that money that was
Yeah.
put aside?
I'd like to know that too.
I'll let Will
I'll
talk
be
to it.
happy to answer that.
Yeah.
And when we ended up getting the numbers back in December 23rd of last year, they were preliminary numbers from the accountant. He basically said, here's what I have, and I'm still looking at this to get verified. Well, what happens was, and it's basically an oversight, because I talked to him again, that the Article 45 at the annual town meeting last year took 11,000, and he had it as general stabilization when it really came out of capital stabilization. That made a big difference, and it actually lowered the amount of money that we had in capital stabilization. That 11,000 didn't go anywhere, it just, instead of being from capital, it is in the general fund. He had it listed. So it listed that it was coming out of the general fund, which lowered the amount for the general fund, and it increased the amount for the capital. Well, he corrected that. And that's the big change that happened. We now have, in the capital stabilization, $1,958.95. And the general stabilization went from 103,000 to 115, just by that change.
So it's just really a transfer that we would have to make, like just a kind of a, so the money's there.
The money's there.
We just need to take it
It's just
rather than,
where it was allocated and where it came out. When he had listed it, because he had to go through all the warrant articles to end up getting where all the money went from all the stabilizations, and he mislabeled that particular one as coming from the general on the first iteration, and it really should have come out of capital. So that lowered one and increased the other.
so, yes, Jim.
These are the things that we're gonna have to hope that we're doing accurately at the special town meeting. If we take money out of the general stabilization fund, you know, right now, like I said before, those numbers are still fluid because they're still tying out the numbers.
So, yeah, and that was one of the reasons I was glad Will found it, before Saturday, because if we end up taking the money out of general stabilization to cover the deficit, then we wouldn't have the money available to make this final lease payment. So, and it doesn't make sense to transfer from one stabilization to another, to just appropriate it out of the general.
I think Luann had a question.
Yes, Luann?
If, like at a special town meeting, your stabilization general gets wiped out, and your capital stabilization is down to nil, can you pull this off of your capitalization plan and just put it as a separate article as it has been in the past? I know you want to get into a thing, but you're also getting into a situation where, like, what, 6-year lease or whatever it is? You pretty much got to fund it. I know you want to cut down on the articles on town meeting floor, but this is also an article that you pretty much should pass through. I mean, if
I would
you wipe
agree.
out stabilization, you're not going to do it.
Right,
Right.
but we still have to find out where that money is gonna come from. It's gonna come from somewhere. So that we can cut it from somewhere else.
Right, so if we're not
That's
able to
what
take it
Ted
out of
does.
stabilization, we've either got to then do a debt exclusion to cover it, or take it out of the general fund. So, right, and again, just because, I don't know exactly how the plan will translate into warrant articles, if there'll be individual articles, if we'll do one all-encompassing article, I don't know that. Yes, but
Is there a way to take that last payment out of perpetual care? Since the vehicle's used for perpetual care? I was told by one of the past treasurers that that can be done.
Oh, that's what the situation we're in. You can't do that, because then you can't use it in plowing roads for the town or on the commons or anything. It has to stay in perpetual care.
It has
In-
to stay
in
with
the
cemeteries.
Those families
Could you
pay
even use it
perpetual
for-
care for those
probably
cemeteries.
couldn't use it
You
for
can't use
plaques
anything
either.
else.
Just asking.
Yeah.
all right, we'll continue on here unless anybody else has a question on the cemetery truck. All right, so the next one then, our number 3, is the East Templeton School preservation. Again, this would be no impact to the taxpayer because we're asking for CPC funds to do the preservation, which is the roof and the heating. The CPC is going to support the selectmen's request for CPC funding. So provided that CPC funding passes, we would be able to make those preservation fixes to the building without any taxpayer impact. All right, the next item is number 4, which is a dump truck for the highway.
I got a question.
Yes?
On the school,
Yep.
isn't it said that, you have to pay prevailing wages situation?